Hey guys, what's going on? Carter here. Hope you guys are having a good day. I'm having a pretty alright day, I guess. I don't know. Got a little package drama that I'm dealing with, but should be resolved, I think, pretty well. If the seller is in fact as awesome as they're sounding they are, by seller I'm talking about an actual company, organization, then man, they're going to get a huge shout out from me. In fact, they were already going to get a shout out from me. But then after this, they're going to get a double super mega awesome shout out from me, depending on how this turns out. Kind of a bum deal. It looks like UPS lost a package with a pretty expensive knife in it. So, a little bummed about that. But anyways, moving on. We're going to talk about liner locks and frame locks. I hate to say verse, liner lock verse. These are just some thoughts I want to throw out there. Some of this has already been covered by me and J Davis 882. We had a little bit of an exchange. He kind of posed the idea that liner locks are stronger than frame locks. I took the opposite position, partly because that's what I kind of thought at the time, and the other part because, you know, it's kind of fun playing devil's advocate. Can't have a conversation unless somebody has a different view. But there's going to be a few thoughts on that, and of course we're entering the world of theory here. I'm going to use that term a lot, theory, and by theory I don't mean scientific theory, I just mean common usage by regular people theory, you know, just ideas. You know, that's what this is, it's discussion. I have no scientific data specifically to back up things I'm going to talk about, but, you know, they're not crazy ideas or anything. So basically we're just going to I'll start this video by just delving into the concept of a liner lock being stronger and or safer than a frame lock. And this all starts with kind of the misconception of the frame lock. And this is very common. People see this thick lock bar here. They see how thick this slab of titanium is, and they just automatically think indestructible, unbreakable, unlockable lock. Really, it's a bit of an illusion. Because basically, you know, as the saying goes, something is only as strong as its weakest link. And obviously the weakest link on here is the cutout. The cutout actually gets very, very thin right there. And that cutout is necessary in order to allow this to hinge. Otherwise, you would never be able to move this lock bar over. And the catch-22 with this is, the thinner this is and the weaker you make it, the easier it is to disengage. So this latest version of the ZT0550 is very easy to disengage. It's super smooth because there's not a lot of tension on the detent ball pushing on the blade. One of the things that makes the blade kind of difficult to open at times is the drag created by that pressure of the lock bar. So when you reduce that, you can make it really smooth, real easy to unlock, but you're also really thinning out your metal right there. I mean, you can see how thin that is. Super thin. So if enough tension is put on this lock bar, that's where it's going to fail right there. So if anything, that's the most concrete thing I'm going to say in this whole video, is the fact that, you know, keep that in mind. Just because this is a thick lock bar doesn't necessarily mean it's this strong, because really when you taper it down to this little piece right there, it affects it quite a bit. If you compare it to this liner lock, you can see that the liner is actually thicker than that cutout is, and this liner has no cutout. So basically what that means is, in terms of failure of the lock bar breaking, I would suspect that this one would actually break right here before you would see any kind of failure on here. Now let's delve a little bit more into some theoretical type stuff that I've been thinking about as I've been looking at the liner on here. You've got a couple of beneficial factors kind of working towards you with this. As you put tension down on this lock bar, it's going to want to bend, you know, kind of towards the middle, about, give or take. It's going to kind of want to bend right there. So in theory, as you put tension on here, it'll kind of bend out here, and it'll actually create a stronger angle driving into the underneath of the tang. Well, the reason I say that is because the other culprit, besides the lock bar actually breaking or something like that, the other culprit is slippage, you know, this slipping off. And I would think in a liner lock like this, it would be less likely to happen for the reason I just mentioned before, just because of how this would possibly kind of potentially arc and then hit up against this scale, and that scale would kind of act as a stop, and then you'd kind of have just like this driving angle into that scale that I think would make for a really, you know, of course it would ruin your lock bar, but I think it would create a very, very reliable kind of emergency lockup if for some reason a great amount of tension was placed on this lock bar. Now, you don't have that benefit here because all of this is so thick. It cannot bend here. You're not going to kind of get that readjustment, and it's not going to butt up against the scale. So where's it going to go? It's going to go off. That's my theory anyways. It really can't be tested because there's so many different factors that would be involved. You'd have to set up a lot of knives with a lot of tests and run them through all of them before you could kind of really come to a conclusion to that. But I think Michael Walker, you know, I get the impression that a lot of people think that his design was, because it was earlier, that it was inferior to Chris Reeves' integral lock. But I wouldn't be at all surprised if Michael Walker didn't kind of consider this idea. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. That's really going out on a limb there. I'm not sure how readily available titanium slabs were at the time. Maybe something like this just was thrown out for not being practical or cost effective. But I wonder if some of these kind of advanced thinking ideas of how this liner lock would actually behave and how maybe a captured liner lock like that could be beneficial over something like this. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't come up with that. You know, some of those things went into play when he designed the liner lock. I'm becoming more and more appreciative of the liner lock. I still love frame locks. I mean, they just look cool, and you know, a lot of this stuff is just not really that important or that practical. You know, obviously this knife is more than capable of handling anything you would need it for. So a lot of these things I'm talking about are just kind of for fun. But I definitely kind of am appreciating the classic liner lock a lot more nowadays than I used to. I used to kind of jump on the boat of the frame lock just being, you know, because it's so thick, you know, it's got to be super, super strong. But when you really think about it, not necessarily. There's some cool engineering concepts at work on a well executed liner lock that I think can't be overlooked. Alright guys, that's it. I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. That's what I do. I play with knives, ideas come into my head, and I'm like, maybe I'll make a video about that. If it turns out alright, I'll put it up. If not, scrap it. Alright guys, take it easy.